Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome. That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and get started. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Is that what it is? Long, or is it long, long time? Far, far. Long. Anyway, doesn't matter. This is the Uncanny Omar. You're watching Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. Today, I'm going to give you an advanced look at the Star Wars Legends, the Old Republic Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. So let's take a look at this book together. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel, the fine folks at Marvel, for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on November 4th or 5th, depending on where you get your books. What we are looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that is supplied by Joe Quinones. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover. That one is supplied by Benjamin Carré. That's the one that's going to be available everywhere, while the direct market cover is only available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, comicsbugle.com, readcomics.com, forbiddenplanet.com, dimebreedcollectors.com, Organic Price Books, now known as Panel-Bound Comics, and of course Inkstop Trades, DCBS, Tales of Wonder, and your local comic book store. Everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. And shifting the focus back to this, where we have this cover, and I chose this cover because I really like the character of Kerra Holt, and I also am excited every time John Jackson Miller writes a Star Wars comic. So Star Wars, the Old Republic, Legends, which is the line known as the Dark Horse era of Star Wars, the Old Republic, Volume 2. And there she is again, Kerra. And then the back of the book. The galaxy teeters on the brink of destruction. And the Disney logo, Lucasfilm logo, Marvel logo, and the retail price. This one here, retailing for $125. Now, this is a Volume 2, and here it is next to the new printing of Volume 1. And the new printing has the frame around it, so it looks a little bit different than the original printing. And of course, what the spines look like together, Volume 1 and Volume 2, it is a little bit thinner, but that's because there's not that much content compared to this one here. Now, do you need to read the stories or play the video game to enjoy Volume 2? Not at all. Not at all. Because these are newer characters and it's a different era of Star Wars. Here are the flaps, the stunning conclusion of the comic book saga of the Old Republic, and then a list of the creators right here. And these panels right here, taken right out of the comics that are collected in this Omni. Let's go ahead and open it up and look at the stories in here, and of course this artwork, and then the extras in the back. Let's go ahead and open up this omnibus. There's your end sheets and your title page. I love this scene right here. And this is the Old Republic Volume 2. And your credits, Alexander Freed, Rob Chesney, John Jackson Miller, Robert E. Barnes, Mike Denning, taking the bill there for the writing, and pencilers like Dave Ross, Alex Sanchez, George Freeman, Andre Moody, Ramon Box, Dustin Weaver, Paul Lee, and Brian Horton. And inkers like Mark McKenna and Sergio Abad, and Julian Washburn, colorists like Michael Etier, Chris Blythe, and John Rauch, and then lettering like Michael Haisler and Steve Dutro. And something to note, this book is mapped really the way that the Epic collections were mapped, where we have, for example, over here, the Star Wars Old Republic 4, 5, and 6, before issues 1, 2, and 3. And there is a reason for that. And you'll see the publishing date, because this book is mapped in chronological order. You'll even see some books here from 2001, but the story's taken place before, pretty much before the beginning of Luke Skywalker's journey. Some of these thousands of years before. A little bit of a recap as to what's happened. And pretty much the Sith and the Dark Council have just ordered a conquest of the borders out in the Outer Rim. We start off with a story from Star Wars Tales. I believe this is number 16 right here, or no, number 24. Boy, I was wrong. So this is an awesome story just about how this particular planet 4,000 years ago, where the Miraluka live, were invaded by the Sith, and the Sith was able to destroy every one of them with just gorgeous artwork, and just took one of them alive. And then we get into the blood of the Empire. So collected in here is Star Wars, The Old Republic, 1 through 6, that's the 2010 series. Star Wars, The Old Republic, Lost Sons, 1 through 5. Star Wars, Lost Tribe of the Sith, Spiral, 1 through 5. Star Wars, Knight Errants, 1 through 5. Not errands like you're running an errand, I'm sorry, Errant. And Star Wars Knight Errant Deluge, 1 through 5. Star Wars Knight Errant Escape, 1 through 5. And Star Wars Jedi versus Sith, 1 through 6. Material from Star Wars Tales 16 through 17 and 24, which we saw how that is the book that kicked it off, and then Star Wars Visionaries. The book has a total of 976 pages and retails for $125. Now, what I meant earlier when I said that do you need to read anything from Volume 1 to understand the stories in here? No, absolutely not. They're taken years apart and they're at different parts of the galaxies, and I think when you get to this book, it is still inspired by the video games, whether it's KOTOR 1 and 2, but I think this is taking place during the MMO. I haven't played any of them. I just kind of heard that. My brother kind of gave me a quick recap when I was doing, and I listened, my epic overviews, because I had never heard of some of these characters. Some of them I have a little bit, but then some of them, I was like, who is this? And he just kind of told me when these probably take place. The very first story in here, I'm going to kind of go by just give you a recap of like the stories and the type of characters you're going to be seeing in here. This is about this Sith apprentice named Teneb Kel, who ended up leading the Sith to this victory on planet Bergeren. And he is called back to the Dark Council to go through his Sith trials. He's got his partner here, Maggot, although Maggot seems to think that he's more of a slave than a partner. Anyway, he's called back to the Sith Council to go after Exal Kresh. Exal Kresh is the Emperor's apprentice that has gone rogue. So his job in this first 3 issues that are collected in here are to take down this Sith or ex-Sith. So just him and his, I guess, his partner, Maggot, that are trying to take her down. And that's what this is, pretty much. It's the Emperor's instructions to take her down, and it's part of his Sith trials. And the book, or the issues seem to be oversized. Then we move on to the first 3 issues, so we're doing it a little backwards. This storyline is called Thread of Peace, and we have characters like Master Darnala here, and her apprentice. And her apprentice is really one of the main characters of this story, and that is Satele. So what's happening here is apparently during this time there's been a ceasefire between the Republic and the Sith. And there are Oathbreakers out there that are apparently still attacking, whether people are aware or not. And apparently there was a treaty on Coruscant that is about to fall apart. We also meet some other important characters, like these 2 gentlemen right here. Oh my gosh, Master, what is this guy's name? Okay, that's Lieutenant Tavris right here. And Master Orgus, that's the guy's name. And these 2 guys will play an important part in all of this. So, together, along with Sadalin Shan, that's her name, they have to expose the people responsible for perhaps betraying this particular treaty that was supposed to be across the galaxy. And again, taking years from here, because I think this one here takes place 25 years after the stories here, because the characters here aren't really involved in that first story. There is mention perhaps of this particular Darth Lord, Darth Thanatin, and you may see the beginnings of something that could be Darth Thanatin. And let's get to the next story. This one is called The Old Republic, The Lost Sons. Now, this one does have a little bit to do with the previous story. So in here we meet Agent Theron Shan. And Theron Shan is the non-sensitive son of Grand Master Sadalin Shan. So if you were paying attention, that was the character that we talked about in the second story arc in here, issues 1, 2, 3 of the Old Republic. And this is Darth Mekis. And this particular story is about Theron Shan sent on a mission to recover his old mentor, the Jedi Master Gani Zo. All these names. And then this right here is Tefith, who was kind of like his bounty. She is a smuggler that he ends up capturing. And because he has her with him, they end up going to go and get his master. And what ends up happening is that all three of them actually have to get sent on a mission. They get kind of roped into this mission to take down a factory that is putting out all these super weapons. And who exactly is running that factory? And I actually like the characters here and just the kind of chemistry they have with each other. This one's written by Alexander Freed, and David Daza does the artwork for this one. And let's get to... Here we have the Lost Tribe of the Sith miniseries. This one focuses on a couple of characters, primarily this guy right here. This is Parlan Spinner, who's a descendant of the Sith, who don't really call themselves the Sith anymore. Now they're going around calling themselves the Tribe. And this is all taking place at first on the planet of Kesh. He doesn't really seem to fit in, and he ends up getting captured by Takara, who's this daughter of a Grand Lord. And she wants to kind of go out there and make a name for herself, and is a bit of a Sith herself. So both of them together will go on this grand adventure. And again, I love the fact that we focus on both Sith and Jedi in this Omni. And they end up meeting this tribe called the Doomed. And what they're trying to do is... They live here in, what is this place called? The Eskren? Yeah, this is the Eskren. And what they do is they tap into the light and dark side of the Force. And somehow they end up releasing Lord Drapa, who was apparently the co-founder, one of the co-founders of the Sith, this guy right here. So the rest of the series is about trying to get him back to sleep. And there's some awesome imagery through this little mini-series. Then we get to a time jump. As a matter of fact, 2,000 years later. That's how much of a range this book has. Like, we're talking... Yeah, we're a little bit over half the book, and now we're 2,000 years. But still about 1,000 years or so, probably a little more, before the coming of Luke Skywalker and gang. I really like this character. This is the character of Kerra Holt. And the main story here is pretty simple to follow. It's about Kerra Holt, who is a Jedi, and her master. And what ends up happening is her master ends up getting killed at the hand of one of these Sith Lords. You have Lord Daemon and Lord Odeon. And there is this rivalry between both of these Sith Lords. They're obsessed with one another until that target changes to the Jedi, especially in the second series, or the second book, I guess, the second miniseries. So her master ends up getting killed, and she becomes the lone Jedi warrior in this particular storyline. And she is the only Jedi on Cheloa now. So the main first 5 issues here is all this survival between her and perhaps some other people that will end up joining the light side of the Force. And she is up against these two brothers that are just at opposing sides of each other, and also against the Jedi. So the second series through here, we'll get to meet more characters. But this one, yeah, where she ends up going home, this one is actually called the Deluge. It's where she ends up returning back to her home world of Akeliris. And really interesting to note, but at the beginning of this mini-series right here, it stated that there was a book, a novel in between this. So Knight Errant, this again is John Jackson Miller writing the stories in here. But there was apparently a novel that focused on the character of Kerra. What I liked about the first miniseries, the Knight Errant, is that you don't see her character growth until the very end. You don't see the type of character that she's supposed to be. This time around, she is a little bit more sure of herself. Now, here she ends up finding this childhood friend of hers, this guy named Jode Creel. And then we end up meeting a Republic Starfighter squadron who's a bit of a badass. This young lady right here. And that is Captain Jen Devad. Now, this one is a little different because we still have the opposing side of the Sith. But the Sith this time around are kind of fighting, or they're a conflict between the Hutt of this planet. And what is the name? Zodo the Hutt, this guy right here. So Zodo the Hutt is now the crime boss who wants to take advantage of the chaos the Sith Lords left in that first miniseries, and they've weakened each other. So it's kind of like I don't want to call it a love triangle, but there's definitely 3 different opposing sides here up against Kerra and her friends. And I really like this miniseries. I thought this one was excellent. The next one's a little bit different, though. The next one takes place just a little bit after this, where it's the return of Kerra, and we still have some of the Sith Lords. But this one here is called Escape. And in Escape, she tries to tap into the dark side of things and kind of goes undercover to try to take down the Sith from the inside. So she's become a one Jedi army to save the beings of this particular planet in the Republic space from, again, those 2 Sith Lords. This time is Lord Odian and Daemon. And there's also another character that will join her, Wayman, who's a claimer through here. But this will end that trilogy. And then we get to some of the visionary stories here. The prototype. I love this cover right here. This is Udon Studios. I think it looks like Alvin Lee. And then we get this really interesting story. I think this was collected in the Epic Collection. No, this is a story of The Apprentice. Don't mind the covers. They really don't have much to do with what the series are about or the little stories collected in here. This is the last story that's collected in this omnibus, and this is the Jedi versus Sith. This is the story that was, I guess it came out in 2001. It is by Darko Macan and Raul Fernandez. Ramon Box doing some of the art in here too. But this is about 3 cousins. You have Tomcat and Rain and Bug, who want to join the Jedi effort. This takes about 1,000 years before Luke Skywalker. So again, we still have some years in between. It's weird because the Old Republic was, what, 4,000, 5,000 years? A little over 4,000 years before A New Hope. And then we have the High Republic, which is Marvel's. Well, I guess it really wasn't Marvel's. It's like Charles Soule's novels, and then there were Marvel comics. That only took place about 1,000 years. So it's crazy that these stories took place about 4,000 years, and then this one 1,000 years. But yes, it is about these 3 cousins that end up under, what is his name? Lord Hoth. Will want to become Jedi Knights. And, well, they have a battle with the Brotherhood of Darkness, and things don't go as planned, of course, especially when you're 3 kids. I don't know if this was supposed to be a young adult story, because it kind of, maybe it's the artwork that felt like that, but there's a lot of things that happen here that I was like taken back by just how much, not really over the top violence, but just how much violence Star Wars can have. And then the last story in here is part of the Star Wars Tales that could be a young Yoda, 700 years before the Battle of Yavin. But no, it's not Yoda. It's another character named Minch. And then let's look at the extras in the book. So we have some bios back here. These are Notes of the Old Republic back here. So much like the Notes of the Old Republic that we had in the first volume. Very similar to that. Just the different characters, and then Star Wars Old Republics, they're a P San Diego Comic-Con giveaway, and then variant covers, and this is the Spiral #1 text feature by John Jackson Miller, and then 30th Anniversary Collection Volume 2 Jedi vs. Sith hardcover introduction by Darko Macan. There's a cover Kerra Holt. And an interview with John Jackson Miller. And this interview was done for the Knight Errant Zero Lord Damon, Sith Lord, and then variant covers here. Oh, that is an awesome variant cover by Mike Hawthorne. I kind of wish that would have been the direct market cover. And then trade paperbacks of, oh, that's right, because Dark Horse was publishing their own trades back then. And then the end sheet. So let's look at the binding here. 976 pages. It is sewn binding. That's what the eye looks like. Printed in this glossy paper stock. This one is printed at the Mega Print printer. So, minimal bleed through happening. Let's look at the way the book lays over, because we saw that eye. So we should have minimal gutter loss. Not a lot of double page spreads towards the beginning, but it kind of gives you an idea as the way the book lays over. Man, I love this art at the very beginning, that black and white art. It's a quick story, and then the way the book lays over towards the back here. And they didn't really do a lot of double page spreads in the beginning or the back here. But that is it. That's Star Wars Legends, The Old Republic Omnibus Volume 2. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. In the comments down below, let me know which cover you're picking up, if you got volume 1 and you fell in love with the characters and the story, if you've read these particular stories in single issues, or you ended up getting the epics or trade paperbacks, or if you're only familiar with this era of Star Wars because of the video game. I believe by this time it was the MMO. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong a lot. Just ask my wife. But that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love!